Hey friends, Stephanie here. Welcome to our cozy cabin. Got a fire going. It's actually really, really cold. But today we're just going to dive right in. I need to give you guys some very, very, very important updates and just kind of share some things with you that are going on, some things that have been revealed, some things we've learned, maybe address some of the content you guys are seeing out there. Is it true? Like, are they letting people live in tiny houses or are they removing them? And let's just break it down and get to some of those facts. Also this week, there has been some news come out about possible cyber attacks on the water system, the city water systems. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I will link some of that information below if you're interested in learning more. But we're going to address that in a video this week as well. I've got some filtration systems I'm going to talk about and just share like my thoughts overall and how I have prepared for a water situation, whether it's here where we have well water, but also when we were on city water, living in a more urban area, and how you can be prepared for those things and how we need to be living in preparedness for that stuff now. That is not something you're going to get time to do if there is a crisis. If our water systems were attacked, I think it said in the article 103 or 100 and something million people would be affected. And that is like the red flag that they're concerned about right now is 100 million people. That's a lot of people. That would shut down so much. It would leave, like, that would be catastrophic. And so you can't prepare for something like that when it's too late. Not to mention, if you're not drinking clean water and you're using your city water, then you might not know until it's too late, right? Because you're using water out of the tap. If there was an attack on that system and something was put into the water, whatever it may be, you might not know until it's too late if you're already consuming that water. So we're going to break that down in a video this week. Today, I'm not going to do a lot of edits. I'm not going to do any edits, hardly. We're just going to have a coffee chat. I got my good mic out to make this sound a little bit better. And we just need to, there's just some things that I need to bring to the table today. And I'm going to try to not get super emotional about it, but we will see because there's some big stories. So let's start. First things first. So some of you guys saw my live. I did a live with Billy and a woman called Lacey Montgomery. I want to address this because I did the live with her. I actually filmed an interview with her that I will not be posting at the moment. And my reason is I have some serious red flags about if she is really part of the organization. She says, I think she's a part of the organization, but are they actually doing the things she claims? I will preference, like, I hope I'm wrong, and I will come back immediately here and announce that if I can get proof and feel comfortable with what she's saying. She's doing and raising money for. And here's my concerns. So she did a video, was it with the real estate? I'll link it below. It's a couple videos that have gone viral. His channel's like the real estate guy or something like that. He seems super trustworthy. What he's putting out is good content. I think, and I've kind of really spent some time kind of processing this to see there. And I say this a lot, there is truth in everything, but the truth in all these situations tends to be somewhere in the middle. It's a little bit more gray. It's not as black and white as it can appear when we're talking about it through the internet or when you're seeing a 1-minute reel on Instagram, right? There's other backstories. There's other things going on. And so what I have gathered, and then I'll explain why I have concerns. So I'm going to address what she has said, how it went with our interview, and then where the red flags for me are that have left me in a place where I cannot share her Venmo or her phone number or anything like that, and recommend that you actually donate money to what they're doing. So she came across through these viral posts that were put out, and the things she was saying, I actually listened to them again last night. There were 2 videos, I believe, or 2 that I've seen. The things she's saying, all except for 2 things, are 100% true. Again, the truth lies in the middle. So it's not like every case, they're not taking children in every situation. But if you are on the radar, that's happening. If you are living in a situation where there's eyes and there's other neighbors who disagree with how you're living, and we're going to talk about this today too, because I come across this a lot with people who just can't understand how a shed can be turned into a home and that be a viable place to live because they have more means than that. And that would never be an option in their brain. But we're dealing with people who were like already, like these are going to be upgrades to some of the situations that people were living in. Okay. And so it's hard for people to understand things that are outside of their beliefs, right? So when you've got eyes, and I had this happen in Florida, I had a friend who homeschooled her kids, an amazing Christian mother, family oriented family, like all the things, like everything you think is wholesome and amazing to do as a mother, she was doing. And her neighbor did not agree with that. She didn't believe in homeschooling. She didn't believe in children running around barefoot and half naked in the backyard. And she called DCF on them, and they had to go through a nightmarish situation with lawyers and everything involved because one person didn't believe the way she raised her children was the right way to raise them. So we have to be real careful with our beliefs and how we stick them in other people's businesses because we might just not be right. You know what I mean? Everybody has the right to live how they want to live, I believe. And yeah, that's a whole nother conversation we don't have time for. But yes, if someone's got eyes on your situation and they don't believe it to be right, those situations are happening. They're not happening everywhere. So in her videos, she discussed a lot of things like beliefs on what's going on, the camps that are set up here, how they're being guarded by independent, hired out security. All those things are true. Everything she said tracks true from what I have personally heard firsthand, seen with my own eyes, or have experienced. There were two that I couldn't get confirmation on, and it was the dogs. And I'm going to use a little bit of code here because these kind of things, these topics are getting flagged. So there were dogs passing due to toxins. That was one of them. The dogs that had come out that were trained to look for the lost. There was a claim, I think she said 9 of them died, and that she had called that crew in, and so she felt really guilty because she had called them in. So that was one of them. And then, which to me was very specific. And then the 18-month-old that died of hypothermia. I was trying to get confirmation on that because I haven't been able to actually talk with anybody who can give me specifics on location, where this was at, and like confirm, yes, I know these people, or I had eyes on this situation, or I'm involved in this somehow. That's how the information I'm talking about, like that's my connection. I'm not always there to see it with my eyes, but somebody I know personally and trust was there. That's the information I'll bring to you guys. So I had heard her stuff and thought, oh, I should call her because I really want to know more about those two situations. We're going to talk about the toxins and what's going on with that. And I didn't. And then I heard she popped back up on another podcast, my favorite podcast, someone I've been listening to since 2012. If you want to know everything I believe and just like what I think is going on in the world, this is the podcast. He's a brother in Christ. He's been speaking truth for a long time and really fringe stuff. And some of you guys might not be that far down the journey of, being red pilled is what they call it. And some of you are, I can tell by the comments, like you're way there. So I will link his podcast below. It's Contending for Truth by Dr. Scott Johnson, and just really great information. And so I was listening to his podcast on last week, Monday or Tuesday. No, it must have been Wednesday. I was listening to it on Wednesday, and he played a clip of hers and her number came back up, or he put her number in the PDF. And I have discussed with him my concerns, and he has removed those at this point until we get confirmation that what she is doing is actually legit. So I text her and she was like, we're coming out that way today anyway. Let's meet. So I was like, great. God's doing great things. So I called Billy because Billy and I, and here's another thing, like when someone's out here doing stuff, it's easy to get connected with them, especially if they believe the same things as you. I'm working with people who believe complete opposite things from me and who like to go with state officials and do things in a bureaucratic way. Like we've crossed paths and help each other where we need to, but we don't work side by side because we don't believe the same things, right? And so Billy, and I would call him and his wife like fast friends. So I called him and was like, hey, some of the stuff you're talking about aligns with some of the stuff she's talking about, because he's really honed in on finding out what is in the water and what is in the mud and doing independent testing to get us answers so that we can do bioremediation. Like problem, yeah, let's figure out what the problem is so we can find the right solution. He's super passionate about that and getting that handled and taken care of. And she's discussing how she invited this team in of the dogs and they are no longer around because of the toxins in the water. So I was thinking, what great connections to make so we can get to the bottom of this and like speak truth into what's really happening here. And we're going to get to what's really happening here. I'm going to discuss that as far as the toxins go. So, or what I believe anyway, what I know so far. So I called him. He ran up there. I started interviewing with her prior to him arriving and asking some questions. And then he came in, he asked some questions. We all had some fun conversations and then they left. Okay. And I did some of it on live, just a little portion of it we put on live towards the end. Didn't really cover much. My goal, and I told her the minute she got there, was to confirm those two stories. Those were the ones that I did not have personal experience with or didn't know anyone who had personal experience with, and really wanted to bring that to you guys as like, is it true? Yes or no? Through that conversation, and she has mentioned in one of her videos, her background is psychology, I believe, or something like that. There were runarounds. So you'd ask a question and the answer would loop around and then end up somewhere else. And then I would ask the question again and we'd loop around and never get the answer. Billy did the same. He asked very specific questions. We got runaround answers to them. And I'm not going to go further than that, but it's a little deeper than that. Personally, I believe like going back and listening to some of those things, I have concerns there were some manipulative tactics in there of diverting. Also, some things like we need housing, though it kept going back. She kept going back to like, we need a solution. It's about to be cold. It's very, very cold here. That's totally true. It's very cold. It's going to be cold for all week. We need churches and event centers and whomever to open up their buildings for 10,000 people immediately to get people out of the cold. And I was like, great. Like we can take 5,000. Like I could literally get you a place for 5,000 people in Marshall right now. Like if that's what we really need, where are the people? Because that was confusing to me. How do you have a database of 10,000 people who need somewhere to go? Because I'm active out there and I'm going to break down what this looks like. Disaster, relief recovery organization from a boots on the ground grassroots effort, because that's who's out here. Homeschool mom over here. I call myself a homeschool mom. This is like the first semester. I haven't actually homeschooled my children, but that I say that to like point out, like I'm a housewife. I don't even have a clue how I got into this role. So there's that. Other than, God put me here and here we are. So that was my thoughts. I was like, wait a minute. Well, where are these 10,000 people? If you really need that, like I've got it. I can make 3 phone calls right now. I know 3 places that will open their doors immediately and let about 5,000 is what we could house. If that is a true need, like let's do it. And so there wasn't any, it was just real vague stuff being called a need for a solution. But then when actually one was offered, there just was a lot of stuff that didn't add up. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So we ended that conversation. I kind of felt something was off in the moment, but when you're talking to somebody and everything's so fast and you're recording and a lot of it's true, a lot of it is true, and we're talking about those things that are true, it's easy to get manipulated and to not catch. But I left there thinking, something doesn't seem right here. So I went home, started researching, digging. I could find nothing, nothing under her name hardly. The organizations she mentioned she was a part of, nothing was coming up. I ended up finding one thing, and it took a long time. I probably have spent 3 hours researching her through the internet, trying to find more information with very, very little coming up. I'll actually put what I found below. It's just 2 sources. And those sources, it was a YouTube under her name with some numbers after it. And there was one reel posted. And that was the one thing. It took me about an hour to find that. And I watched the reel, and the reel didn't say much of anything. It didn't tell any story. And I closed that, went on a hunt trying to look for the organization she mentioned and all of those things. I tried to look through comments on the guy who originally posted her content to see if I could find anything. Like, spent a lot of time on this. And then I went back to the YouTube and watched that reel again, and I realized it came off of TikTok and it was tagged. And so it had a name on it, and that name was Cabin.Connection, I'm pretty sure. It's just Cabin.Connection. I will link it below. And so I went over there, and I did see her on that page. But again, like, no, there was one pinned post with some people in a helicopter. She was not in there. And she did mention someone gave them a plane. And the story of that seemed a little weird. And there is one kind of reel, like a little bit of a clip of this plane. But again, no real evidence that there's a team, that they're doing the things she says, that they've got drones, that they're like working full time doing all of these things that she has claimed. Again, if I'm wrong, like, I will totally take all of that back. I hope I'm wrong, and that I get to remake this and say I was wrong, and here's our proof, and here's all the links, and donate till your heart's content, because they're doing amazing work. Like, I hope that's tomorrow's post. So after that, I ran into Billy at a meetup that was going on here, and I just said, hey, I've got some red flag feelings about this. And he said he had the same. There were just some things that didn't seem right, so he picked up on the same things. So we just tabled that content. My live is still up, probably going to take it down this week. Nothing in that has her information as far as where to donate, I don't think. She says in there, get with me to get that information, and I will not be giving you that information. So what I have done since having concerns is I did text her, and I said, hey, can you send me your socials? She sent me her Venmos, 2 of them, but no socials. And so I messaged back and said, hey, do you have any social media content? There was a reply that I'm starting a YouTube tomorrow. Then I replied again just yesterday and said, hey, I cannot share your links and help you raise funds without seeing some proof that you're doing the things you say that you're doing. And here's another important part to this. I said, I understand we want to be discreet. And we don't want to, because I shared this on Instagram with somebody that had concerns, and she was saying, well, maybe she's being discreet because she's scared because of the things she's sharing. I don't know. I know people who are discreet in the things they share, and they can still tell a very clear story and still show very clear details on what they're doing without putting themselves in a place of exposure where people might be able to find out where they're at or things like that, right? There's a way to do that. And that's what I said in my text. I deal with families in dire situations right now. I'm going to show you guys, and we're going to talk about one of these stories that's so, so sad. It's going to make me cry. And I'm going to show you guys pictures and I'm going to show you clips, but I'm not going to put my camera in this person's face and I'm not going to take you into every detail. So I do it in kind of a B-roll way out of respect for the people here, right? And so there's a way to do that is the point of that. And so I kind of mentioned that in the text. She replied, absolutely. I'm going to have their nonprofit set up tomorrow, which would be today, which doesn't, again, like, I don't care if you have a nonprofit. That doesn't mean you're actually doing the things you claim to be doing. A nonprofit doesn't solve the problem that I can't actually prove you're doing the things you claim to do. So I want to break this down a little bit. And the other issue too, this is not a big ask. Like if you said, hey, I want to donate money, but I want proof you're actually doing the things you say, like, it would take me 3 seconds to go bloop, 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 right? And you could see all of it in transparency. She showed up with 4 people filming. All of them had cameras. There was a GoPro, a phone. I don't even remember all the cameras because it was just like, whew. That was the other red flag. The way they came in was just a little bit, I don't know. I'm not going to get into all that because that's just personal opinion. But there was cameras, lots and lots of them. And so if you have a camera crew, and Aerial Recovery is a great example of this, and Ian went, they came here to help us in downtown Marshall. I made a video of that. We did a live together, what we were doing. They rolled in with a camera crew, and within an hour, they were posting things on their socials. That's what you're doing if you're out working in the field and you're working to raise money to help these people and to keep awareness alive. They're speaking truth. They're not hiding things. They're saying the same things that other people are saying. And within an hour, we were all binging off each other on the internet, tagging and collaborating and posting, because that's what you do when you come in with a camera crew and you are doing the work you say you're doing. And you want to be honest about that and show people where their money's going. Ian was really big on that. And then Aerial Recovery, like they're documenting the work that they're doing because that's what funds their projects, and it keeps the story alive and it helps to share what's really happening here so that our stories here don't get buried and don't get retold in a way that's not true. So to come in with a camera crew and not to have any socials where you're putting that content. She didn't ask for my channel. She didn't ask for my name. I can almost guarantee if I sent a text right now and said, can you tell me what my name is and what my channel is? She would not know. And that's weird, right? Because when we do these collaborations, like I said, it's hours that we're getting the content out to you guys and we're tagging each other and we're networking and we're helping each other. So red flags all around, all that to say, I think what has probably happened is the way like boots on the ground Grassroots has worked is initially like those affected. I have friends who weren't very affected, so they might be doing some volunteer work occasionally on the side. I'm like fully in it because I was very affected because we live near downtown and our lives are in downtown. My husband's office was flooded. Like I go through there twice a day minimum. Like our lives are highly connected. So we were just there and boots on the ground because of that. And so we would just volunteer. And I ended up on the second week in a neighborhood that was destroyed. We have some church members there. And then there was a call out on a Facebook group like, hey, don't forget this area over here. We're kind of, we need to step in and help. We've been working in Marshall, but this area needs help as well. And so we went over there and there was one young girl when I showed up, kind of like directing things. And I just went in and started helping these guys from Alabama who were taking down this house. We're pulling out the walls. I started pulling out the furniture and the things inside that might be savable, the things they wanted to save, or like dishes and things like that. So I was putting them in the yard. So we're just working, right? And these guys were from Alabama and they were amazing. And they were ripping this house apart with their bare hands. Literally no gloves, no mask, no protective eyewear. They were ripping the house down to the studs with bare hands. This house had smells in it that were so strong. It put 2 people down, like on their knees, coughing at one point. It was extreme. And so I went the next day, I left there that day actually, and went and collected gloves and goggles and respiratory masks and proper equipment to put in this little hub, right? And so that younger girl, she was doing amazing, but I think it just got overwhelming because you kind of find what your skills are in this and what naturally fits. And when it doesn't, you go find a different job. I've done that too. Like my job is not running this hub in this neighborhood. I can be a runner for them, but to coordinate, that was not my role. So another woman came in who's connected to that neighborhood, which helps because she feels comfortable and the neighbors feel comfortable talking to her. And she's ex-military. I think she was actually ex-Marine. She kind of took over that hub, and then she was communicating all of the needs. And then there were people like myself. For a while, I was a runner. So she would say, hey, we need tents. This is how the sheds started, actually. We needed a tent because this Mr., and I'm not going to give his name, is going to sleep here. Someone stole his tools last night. He wants to come back. He's going to sleep in a tent. Can you help me find X, Y, and Z? So I was out finding this gear, and I camp in these mountains, and I was like, this isn't going to do it. And that's how the Lord put it on my heart the next morning. Like, we need to raise money, do sheds. Then it was like, let's insulate it, make it warm. And then here we are doing the tiny house and actually moving into permanent housing, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So my guess, and if I had to predict based on listening to her stories, there was one gentleman, a friend who was ground zero and was in his kayak like the day of helping people. And I'm guessing she came in, and you're a part of a lot of things, and all the things she has shared, except for the two, and I'll address those in a minute, I've heard those stories from like people actually boots on the ground there too. It's not hard to know a lot of those things that are going on if you are in the mix and volunteering. So what I'm gathering from looking at her stuff is that they have been helping, but I can't get any proof they actually have this SARS, is that what you call it? This team and this equipment, and that they're doing things at the scale she claims to be doing them. If anything, I'm not seeing a lot of any work being done via the social media, and looking at the people that are tagged in some of her social media, same thing. A lot of talk, not a lot of action happening. And the talk's easy. Like, I could sit here all day long and tell you all the conspiracies and how I know many of them to be true. But if we are asking people for money, and that's where it goes back to, like, I don't care what she says or what she does, but I can't promote. And because I brought her on my channel, I just want to clarify this. I just can't prove. And I hope I'm wrong. Again, hope I make this tomorrow and I'm like, I got all this proof and I was so wrong. I will tell you guys immediately if that happens. So the two things that I could not confirm, and we'll roll into these topics, the dogs. And I know where that story is coming out of, but I really wanted some firsthand experience. And everyone who tells that story, when I ask specifically, did you see them? Do you know who they belong to? The story changes. Okay. So I think, again, there's truth in it. But it's not what's being shared. Are there toxins in the water? Absolutely. Like, There is no doubt, and I've actually seen independent Facebook posts of local dogs getting sick from drinking out of puddles and things. There's no doubt. I mean, I was on the bridge Friday evening. We were out there at like 5 post Hurricane Helene, and I got splash on my face, and you could taste, like, I was spitting on the bridge and like, okay, get off the bridge, because it felt like gasoline is what it felt like. You could smell it. It was incredibly strong. I watched hundreds over the 2 days, Friday and Saturday when we were down there, just propane tanks and gas tanks like this. And that's how I realized like how many houses were affected by this, because there were so many propane and gas tanks coming down the river. It was unbelievable to me. All of those would have had things in them. You have entire houses completely gutted, buildings gone. There was these giant like plastic tubing from some business that went in. It just came down for like 2 days straight. There was just this plastic tubing everywhere. On the island to the left of us, I don't know where all this stuff is now. That's my other thing. Like, where did all this stuff go? Because by Saturday, a lot of those houses disappeared, but you had entire houses. Like, it could easily have been 4 or 5 houses piled up in debris on the left. Like, what's in those houses? Cleaning products, paint products, old batteries, like computers. Like, there's so much stuff, antifreeze from air conditioners and refrigerators and all of those components and all of those things in our homes was in the river. Like, there's no doubt. Also, it was mainstream media news that the plastics company went in, the whole company, all of those chemicals, and they were even on mainstream news saying the particular chemical in that was a radioactive material. And I had this little like fluff disclaimer, like, but it's okay because it's not the bad radiation. So I had this like text thread going where I joked, where I was like, yeah, I've been out in the, mudding all day. There's radiation, but don't worry, it's not the bad kind. Just trying to make light of this situation. That was mainstream media news. So are there toxins out there? Absolutely. If a dog or an animal drank from a puddle that had a concentrated amount of something in it, could they be sick? Absolutely. But I could not confirm, if I called in a team to help me with something, I can tell you their name. I can tell you their pets' names if they brought pets, right? Like, we know each other in this situation. So that was my thing. Like, if this actually happened, the handler would be openly speaking about it as well. I think what I have gathered from talking to a lot of people who experience this, where the story is coming out of, is basically there are all these hubs that initially set up command centers, which is where that term came from. And that's where I think like she probably was involved and like a sidekick in some of those things. And then maybe like heading up a couple of her guys, because she calls them her boys. Like, they might have been helping other people and she was kind of coordinating something for them. So all of that's true. But are we doing those big things now? That's what I can't confirm. And so there were these hubs. So I was just talking to a woman this weekend, and she was in charge of packing the stuff that was going on to the mules who were going up into the mountains, and that was going on the helicopters. So people were coordinating, like, we need these things to go here. And then somebody's job was to coordinate that. Somebody's job was to pack that. Somebody's job was to drive the helicopter and drop it, right? Everybody had all these different jobs. And she was one of the packers. So she was ground zero, got to experience and hear a lot of things. She made that claim about the dogs dying. And I said, did you physically see them with your eyes? And she said, well, no, but I watched 3 of them come back looking not well. They got in the plane with the handler and left, and people started refusing to bring the dogs back. And so that, from what I have gathered, that is where the majority of that story, as far as I can share, until I get more confirmation, like direct, I can't prove like they actually died and all of that. So I think a lot of those stories stemmed out of that. It's like the telephone game, like the sick looking dogs and the people refusing to come back turned into this story. And then people started to own that story as their story. And that's where we're at. So that's kind of what I've gathered with that. With the 18-month-old that was supposedly died from hypothermia because they were given a camper, and then the camper was taken back because it was repoed. Like, it wasn't the person who gave the camper didn't have permission to give the camper. That's the story. I can't confirm that. I can't find anybody who knows what area that was in or who has any direct connection to that. I do know from a pastor out in Swannanoa. This was very early on. There were 2 Hispanic children that died of hypothermia. So is it possible? It's kind of like, is the mud toxic? Yeah. Like, is it so toxic that everybody breathing the dust is like 911 being ground zero? I don't think so. I think there is a dilution factor there. The water is moving incredibly fast. It's a big, vast piece of land where 9/11 wasn't. That was a very concentrated area. Is it dangerous? For sure. Like, is it ideal? No. Is it there? Yes. our area is going to be highly concentrated. Yeah, I can tell you there are certain areas I've gone where I was down delivering a shed to someone who I thought was homeless. Turns out they just wanted a drinking shed. We have since picked that back up. You could smell, it doesn't smell right down there. It doesn't smell like natural river. It doesn't smell right. So I do believe there are toxins in the water. I wouldn't go swimming in there. I wouldn't want to be living with all of that continually having to be exposed to that. I don't think that's super safe. Maybe not back in the hollers, but in some of the areas like Swannanoa, the French Broad, those are everything feeds through those. So they're definitely, and the chemical plant, like the plastics plant was literally like right up the street that went in, not to mention all the other businesses along the way. And then everything from Swannanoa feeds into the French Broad and comes down, and all the water treatment facilities were breached and just so much stuff. So to not think it's not toxic is actually, like, people who think it's fine, to me, that is more unbelievable than it being like incredibly toxic and just going near it, you're in trouble. Again, I think the truth is in the middle somewhere. It's going to take a while. There's some recent scientists I just read in the area, and they track these little crustacean critters. Okay, so my phone died, but where I was at was they're testing they monitor these little crustacean things in the rivers, and they were saying they're all gone. And it's how they monitor toxins in the river and kind of gauge the health of the river. And they were just saying, like, it's going to take years for our ecosystem to come back in these rivers and to be healthy again. So to think there aren't toxins in there is more ridiculous to me than thinking like pets are dying from it. But again, it's probably somewhere in the middle. Probably made some people sick. I'm certain it made some people sick. I'm certain it made some animals sick. I just don't think that particular story. I can't confirm that. I just can't confirm that particular story, which is what I wanted to do, which is why I had the interview. So moving on, I want to share some situations that we're in right now, just so you know what's going on here. So I've shared we're going to build this house. This week is going to be like the launch into like getting that started and really pushing that project through. But last week I was brought 2 other needs. And so one is incredibly sad. And then the one is that this woman had a family in her church who lost their home from this hurricane. And so the woman, the daughter, a grown daughter, is in the house with her. She's an older woman in a wheelchair. And the father, who's 77 in a wheelchair, is in a shed, but it's a shed she uses to store stuff. It's not insulated, so they can't keep heat in there. It's just not holding, obviously. Also, it's not safe to be in a shed with stuff in it that's not outfitted if you're in a wheelchair. And then there are 2 teenagers, and they're boys, and they have been at the uncle's or kind of sofa hopping. And one of them's really, she said, was like crying, wanting to come home. So we got a shed over there last week that was built by AB Tech students. It has bunk beds in it. The plan is to get the older gentleman in that to stay warm right now. So that's where he should be right now. And then we're going to work on a better situation for him. And then the boys can take that little shed. And the sheds are like bedrooms. So they can go use her bathroom and they can use her kitchen, or other people are feeding them. But it gives them a place to have their own space and to stay warm and to have a comfortable, real bed, right? So the boys can get this bunk bed in this little bunkhouse. It's actually super cute if you're a teenager, like teenager's dream little cottage. So that is one situation. I don't know. I asked her, what is the long-term plan here? And she said she had no idea. So my plan is to go talk to that family this week and just see what, I don't know, just to see. The other one, and I want to address like something here. Like, I have no idea how I got into this role, other than I know a lot of you guys are going to be, God prepared you for this and put you here for this reason. I do believe that. But I think sometimes there's this thought that, and I can kind of pick up on this, like some people, the way they live, they look at these sheds and are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is going to give somebody security in this wonderful place to live. And other people see it as that can't be the solution. You can't have someone live in a shed that's converted into a house. And some of these, we're talking like big sheds. These are not tiny little sheds that you might see like the Amish are building, which are great. Those are temporary. We're building out more tiny houses that can be outfitted to be a full house. So there's those two different personalities, and I get it. Like, I think maybe sometimes what's happened, I want to tell you this other story, but I want to kind of give some context too, because this other story is so sad. I think sometimes it's perceived like I'm doing these sheds because I think the sheds are the best option and that it's the thing to do. I'm doing the sheds because that's literally the only thing I know how to do. Like, I can't build anything better than a shed. I only did the sheds because it just came to me because God put it on my heart to help that one man. And then it's kind of evolved into, hey, wait a minute. There are people all over YouTube who convert these sheds into beautiful homes and live in them for many, many, many years so they can be debt free and maybe eventually build a house if they get the money. But in the meantime, they're not living in debt. Like, I watched all those videos prior to this. I just found it super interesting that people lived that way. And they do. They live that way. And it's possible. And it's a great life. So it's not that I'm like, sheds make the best houses. And I'm totally like rooted into this project because I have some sort of love for shed houses. I have an appreciation that it's an option. It's just, that's all I literally, like, I can't build you a house. I can't buy you a trailer. I don't know how to get a trailer over here. I don't know how to fix it if we did get it over here. Someone offered us a camper recently, which is amazing. It needs to be finished out some. I know how to do a camper because I lived in a camper. I know how to outfit a camper and make it into a functioning home that's really cozy because I lived in one. It was my home. I'm doing what my skill level and the money being donated allows me to do. And I have wanted to quit for a very, very long time. And I said, I'll quit the day we run out of money and the day we run out of people. And I'm going to tell you these stories because thankfully, thanks to you guys supporting, and I'm going to talk about that too. We haven't run out of the money. We do need more funds. So I'm going to talk about that. Because our needs have gotten greater and we have definitely not run out of the people. And when these situations have come to me, the house we're building, I met that woman. I met a man in Lowe's. How that came to be is I saw this younger guy and his cart looked like he was building a tiny house. And I know because my cart looked like I was building a tiny house. And I was like, are you building tiny houses for people? And he said, no, I'm actually rebuilding my tiny house because mine got flooded and damaged. And we just got talking, and this woman comes running up behind me, and she's like, you're building tiny houses, blah, blah, blah. You know, sweet as can be. Her and her husband actually do home repairs and fix people's homes up. And she was sharing how they basically were ground zero with this one family from day one. And then these 4 teenage boys kind of came alongside them and adopted this family. And they go to school. And when they get done with football practice, they come straight over to the house and they help them work. She was just sharing this amazing story. And she said, I need to get you in contact with this person because she's trying to help this situation. I was like, sure. I took a picture of her number. Well, this woman calls me, and I guess she got the impression because I say tiny houses sometimes, but we're talking about like at this point we were literally just making shed boxes, not actual homes. And she called me and was like, this is the family. Can you build them a house? And all I've known to do through this is to say yes. So I text the church that supports what we're doing and has been partnering with me financially. I do the groundwork and they have been helping raise funds and just totally supportive of what we're doing and believes that this is a viable option for people. I asked him, what do you think? Should we do it? And he said, I think it's a great next step. Let's see, if we can come up with the funds. And so we said yes. And we're working on that now. The man in the shed, that was a no-brainer. Yes, we can for sure get something temporary and way, way better out to that family and get them set up better. And then we can expand on that maybe in the future as we discover what the long-term needs are there. And then this other story, it's not hurricane related. He is a 44-year-old man raised in his grandmother's house, had brain cancer that left him, and I don't know at what age he had brain surgery, but it left him impaired, not functional. He can take care of himself. He can have conversations, but it left him with some brain damage. So he doesn't read or write, and has some memory loss and some things like that. So the neighborhood takes care of this gentleman. They always have. He's just part of their community, and they love on him and take care of him. This house didn't have a mailbox, so they paid his electric bill, made sure he had power, food. He's not on food stamps, not on anything. He's just survived with the help of his abilities and what other people do for him. So the house was, what he didn't realize is that there were taxes, property taxes that need to be paid on the house. They weren't coming to the house because there's not a mailbox. So he didn't get the notices. So the neighbors weren't aware of the situation. The house was sold out under auction for $14,000. So we had a snowstorm last week, and that day, these new owners, which is against the law, came. They threw him out, literally physically threw him out on his head, and took everything out of the house and started throwing it in dumpsters. They didn't give him his clothes. They didn't give him his personal belongings. They didn't allow him to take anything. So he sat in a chair in the front lawn crying as they destroyed everything he owned. Okay. This part's hard. So that night it snowed. That was the night I recorded an intro to another video just Saturday, and I was saying, like, I feel like you guys see me cry more than anyone in my life does. I'm like not a super cry person or a very emotional, touchy-feely person. I'm just not. And, it's just these stories are big. That night was the night we had to put our dog down, so I'm very familiar with the weather that night. And it was about 8 o'clock, it started snowing, and it snowed. And we had several inches by the morning. He wrapped himself in insulation and slept in a chicken coop to stay warm because they kicked him out of the house and he had nowhere to go. And, had he had a little bit more understanding, he could have called 911. You have to legally evict somebody. So they were very much in the wrong. The neighbors have a lawyer involved now. And there is good news in this story. The neighbors found out what happened the next day. No one just happened to, they just didn't see it. We live in these areas where your neighbors aren't directly in front of your face. There's space in between homes. And so they didn't catch it until the next day. They wheeled him down a camper. It's not great. Show you a picture here. It's not something to live in, but to keep him warm right now. And they began the process. He did tell the neighbors that he owns a lot behind this house. So he was aware that they own this lot, and that it had septic and power and water on it. And actually the main house feeds off of that. And so we're going to get that cut off and separated, but he has this lot. And so the neighbor went immediately to make sure the taxes were paid on that. It was like, I think she said it was one day from going into foreclosure. They paid off the part that needed to get it out of trouble. They're fundraising to get the rest within their community, and they are handling that situation for him. And she was asking us if we can handle creating a home for him to live in. So that's, of course, all I could do was say yes. I don't know. We'll get the money. And I'm going to put my GoFundMe and the church that helps support us. We've named it Homes for Hope. And so if you guys want to donate, I appreciate it greatly. We have these two big situations now. They're going to be very expensive if we're making full houses. These are going to need flooring, bathroom, kitchen, all the things you need to live in a house. And these are going to be the long-term options. Unless someone buys him a house down the line, he won't ever be able to buy himself another home to live in. And, that kind of leads me into a couple of things I want to say on that. For one, for a while, they said his spirits were really down and like he wasn't leaving this little camper. But I talked to her yesterday and she said he started walking again. He would walk up and down the street and say hi to everybody. And he started to do that again. And so there's some upstep in so he's feeling happier, which makes my heart sing. And I think he feels hopeful because we are working, like me, the community, we all have a role to try and help this person in this situation. So that's the other thing. Like, I get if maybe the shed home doesn't seem like the best option. And I say this because I've just gotten I think the more I openly speak on here, the more fringe I become to some of the people who haven't seen that side of me. And it's just new for some people. It's not new to me. Like if you know me very closely, I've been fringe for a very, very long time. I've been living in preparedness for a long time because I don't believe the world is as we have been taught and how most people view it. And a lot of you guys watching this know exactly what I'm talking about, and you feel the same way as far as like this storm, where it came from, things like that. The possibilities of that, some people can't fathom. It could be created, and some people can't fathom that it wasn't created, right? So I guess when I hear, I think where I'm at, and this is what I was trying to process. I was talking to my husband about this. Like, it just feels a bit lonely. You guys watching totally support, which is amazing. Without that, like, our story would die and we wouldn't be able to help anybody. So, so grateful. And we probably think very much alike. Or at least with a lot of things, or even maybe with just a couple of things. And those things are powerful enough that it doesn't matter if we don't believe everything. I think it's great that we don't all believe the same things. It's what keeps us all honest and learning and grounded. So, but I will say, like I say we a lot, but really, like there isn't a we. And I think that's the part that, sometimes when I feel like, okay, now we've got these big situations and I reach out for help in the community where I think people are going to be like, yes, of course. And I get things more like, well, that can't be the solution. It's disheartening. And if it's not the solution, that's fine. But what is the solution? Because I'm okay to not do a shed home. If you want to take the money I have and you want to double it, and we go buy a real home and we get other people involved that know how to do things like zoning and contracting and laying a foundation and the things that I am not capable of. Like, if you want to do that, let's do it. I am all for that. I'm not digging my heels in the ground saying I'm only building shed homes and that's the only thing we're going to spend this money towards. I just haven't, no one's ever offered a better solution. No one's ever said, why don't we do this instead? And I can raise these funds and we can take this from being this, what's going to be great solution, and make it 10 times better. Like, let's do that. I would be like, absolutely. And so I think sometimes I get disheartened because I think I'm kind of like waiting for that person to kind of rescue and come alongside and make our solutions even better, and they're not there. And that can wear on me sometimes. When I'm in it and we say yes, and we're coming together and we're planning this out and we're just moving forward in all we know how to do, and things come together because God's like showing up. He's showing up with the money. He's showing up with the people. It feels doable. When I hear But then when I go out and it's not viewed with that same possibility, and maybe like kind of like, well, when it's not viewed, I don't know how to word this. When it's not viewed through the same eyes, and maybe through eyes that aren't as supportive, it can be very deflating, very, very deflating. And like brings me back to this reality. Like it is quite lonely. And I'm going to work on that this week because the one church who is supporting us, like loved this idea and back this. And I tend to like think I can do everything alone. And I do it alone. And so I'm just going to reach out a little bit more this week and get some more hands-on help from that pastor who I know is super excited about this and totally supportive. As far as like the we, like you'll often hear me say we, like there really isn't a lot of we's. There's a team of us, but we're not like an organized team. And this goes back to like the Lacey thing when they're raising money to run their team. Like, where's the team? I want to see the team. I'm raising the funds. This church is raising some funds. I raise them through talking with you guys. I'm working, picking out the sheds, deciding how to finish them out. The church has brought some people to us that the church has found some people that needed some of them. I have found some people that have needed some of them through the help of friends or just being there. A lot of these situations have come up just because we're actually like at the place where the sheds are and people show up looking for help because it's a distribution center. And then I've got an employee that God brought to me that's just been a huge blessing that works full time. He just goes down there and finishes these sheds out every single day is working. And then, you know, Wayne, who owns the general store where the distribution center is and the sheds, is so supportive. And, you know, he's picking up buildings that we didn't finish or that weren't his and delivering those and then picking this building up and moving it here. And he's just 1000% on board for helping people. So that's the we, you know, it's not like that's the we. It's pretty. It's just neighbors helping to the best of our ability. So those are the situations we're fundraising for. Again, I'll put the links on how you can donate if you want to support or spread the word. I'll take you guys along on the journey as we do those. I like to, you know, be transparent, show you what we're working on without exploiting people, but still being able to show you where we're at with everything. And that's what we're working on. As far as other news, like are they the tiny home not being able to live in tiny homes? I just got that message today because Lowe's might be building out some for Christmas to get people in sheds. I don't really know. I think it's Haywood County. I think it's county by county thing. Haywood seems to not be supporting their areas as well. I think it's Haywood, the Clyde area. That's where I'm hearing that come out of from the Appalachian channel. He's covering that a lot. We're not seeing it here in my particular area, but we're also not super concentrated. Well, there's a lot of sheds like in Marshall and in the neighborhoods around here. There's a lot of dwellings that would not be up to code now. There's some of my sheds. There's some other people's sheds. There's campers. There's buses. I saw it looked like someone dropped a trailer right on the river the other day, like a house trailer. That for sure isn't on a foundation or up to code or anything like that. So there's a lot of temporary small dwellings, random dwellings in a lot of places. And one thing is like sometimes there's multiple and that can look excessive, but it's really not when you've got 6 people in a small camper. Like one of our sheds can be a master bedroom and a place like an office or a chair or a quiet space for people and a place to keep a lot of stuff that doesn't have to be in the camper taking up space. And then the camper can be used for a bathroom and kitchen. So there's other dwellings where you might see like a camper and a tent and a shed all in one area, just accommodating one family. And it's needed to make it work for the amount of people that are there. So yeah, I don't know I do believe it's this man on the Appalachian Channel. He's very involved in ministry in that area. He's the one who said there were 800 people in tents, not 800 tents. I think it was 800 people in that area. And I believe that, someone on my Instagram was saying I'm in that area. That's not true. I just don't think we can see everything that's going on, because this man is not, he seems very genuine. He's very much boots on the ground. He's basically living on a campsite with people at the moment. Like, there's no reason to say there's 800 people if there's not 800 people. I just think when you don't see 800 people lined up on your street, it's hard to envision. They're out there. There's people everywhere. It's like, I didn't know the 77. We thought Marshall was tidy and had a nice little bow on it, and everybody had temporary warm housing. And then these two situations came to us just last week that aren't tidied up with a nice pretty bow on them. So a young gentleman found just recently that was way up on the mountain and the road had been damaged and he was cut off, and it was a special needs situation, and they were basically up there starving, eating baby food. This is like on day 60, day 55 or something like that. That's a long time. So there are lots of situations still. We are not getting cleaned up around here. Things are not getting cleaned up. That's a whole nother topic. I'm not even going to get into the other stuff with the F organization. That can be another video. Oh, we've gone a long time here. Thank you for listening. I'll keep you updated. We're going to dive into water filtration this week. I've got a mushroom class to share with you guys, because this is the time of year to start planning to do your mushroom logging. And we're just going to keep learning the skills we need to learn to live in preparedness and live in the fringe, right? I don't want to rely on my grocery store. I don't believe in my grocery store. I believe my grocery store's goal is harm. I believe the majority of government organizations, the goal is harm. I believe big ag, big food, big farm with an A, the goal is harm. And if the goal is not harm, the goal is money. The aspiration for more money leads to harm. So either way, it's harm. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.